Greetings. How's everybody? Very good. Greetings. So let me begin by saying we'll do the roll call. Go ahead.
All right, Gord Wade.
Here.
Brad Schmidt.
Here.
Larry Ferdinand. Vincent Rice. Zell Dudley.
Here.
Mark Fluchers. Roger McKay.
Here.
Edie Gilbert. Ricky Hall.
Here.
Ken Armington.
Here.
Stuart.
There is a quorum. I want to thank everybody for being here. I especially want to thank our board members for their service. I want to thank our guests for coming, and thank everyone else that's here for their interest in what we're here to do, and that is to share information, hopefully provide some answers to questions that are frequently being asked, and have a good exchange of information in a very friendly manner. And again, thank you all for being here. So let's begin with the approval of the minutes of the last meeting. There was a special meeting held, and the minutes have been distributed to you by electronically. Is there a motion with respect to the minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Brad, second by Vincent. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, then indicate by aye. Any opposed by no? And the record will show there are no no's. Thank you. Yeah, we have distributed some rules because of the number of folks that are interested here in participating in the meeting. We've distributed some rules that are in line with the open meetings law. And what we will ask is, let me just say how we'll proceed. This is a meeting of the Industrial Development Board, so we'll be doing the board business. But that will involve some folks addressing the board, and we would ask that you listen carefully to what they have to say, and then we will ask the board members if there are any other questions for those folks, and we'll proceed to the table with those questions. And that is, we'll have an open section of our meeting where anyone who wishes to can address the board. And we ask that you address the board. This is a board meeting. If you want to speak to some of the other guests who are here, or talk to them about other business, or ask them questions, then we ask that you do that after this meeting, that you make arrangements to do that after this meeting. But everyone here will have the opportunity to address this board. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, and that you try not to be repetitive. That's up to you, but we ask you to do the best you can, not to repeat something that's already been said.
And I circulated earlier this week these in anticipation of there being a crowd today. These proposed rules, there's some extra copies of them on the table over there with the agenda. Board's never adopted rules before for speakers because we've never really had them. Usually it's folks who have business for the board who are here. Meetings have always been a little bit more informal. I drafted these rules after looking at some other similar rules on the internet. The one that I thought was the most relevant and the one that I liked was actually from the city of Phoenix. And I adapted it to the IDB a little bit. Donna Fraser, the parish attorney, looked at these and said they're pretty similar to what the commission follows. So up to you, but my suggestion would be to adopt these, and you can put these in the with the board's records, and at least you'll have some speaker guidelines on file and on record for future.
Is there a motion to adopt? So moved. Any discussion? Okay, does anyone have any objection or comment about the rules? All right, then all in favor of the motion indicate by aye. Aye. Any opposed by no? And there are no no's. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll go by those rules.
We have one card. There's some speaker cards on the table by the door. If anybody else, just in case we do have a lot of speakers, so we know who they are, in regard to recognizing. If anybody else wants to talk, we'd ask that you fill out one of the cards and the card.
Just for purposes of everyone's information, we have with us representatives of the IRG here. Stuart Lichter, who is the CEO, president of the IRG, is here. Stu, would you like to introduce the folks on your staff that are with you?
So basically, I know Stiga is involved in leasing of our properties throughout the country, along with a family of other folks who are involved in this project. He's been very successful at it, first-class guy, and he's down here all the time, so I think most of you know him very, very well. And Debbie Harrell is on our management side. She's been with me for probably close to 40 years, and has run major developments like this over the course of 40 years, including she built the entire staff, trained the entire staff, and ran our entire Air Force Space project, where we took over the entire U.S. zip code vacant, and there's now 20-something companies with 15,000 people working on the site. That was Debbie who managed and supervised that entire operation for probably 10 years?
Yeah, 8.5, yes.
8.5 years, and then we moved her on to other things.
Thank you. Thank you. Just for purposes of introduction and for general information, I'm going to take an exception and just go around the room and let everyone introduce themselves so everyone will know who's here. You want to start, Marion?
Marion Marks, Shreveport citizen.
Henry Bernstein, assistant parish attorney.
Sean Googles, KPBS 3.
Nick Long, KSLA.
Who are you with?
KSLA.
You're at KSLA. Okay, great.
Charles Yellen,
Speak up, Charles.
Charles Yellen, UBR.
Thank you.
Catherine Delvin, concerned citizen.
With who?
Concerned citizen.
Okay, concerned citizen. All right.
I'm John Contrivo. I'm also with DBR Shreveport.
Okay, great.
Dr. Willie Wilson, Parish Administrator for Caddo.
Steve Lindsay with Hunt Gio and Associates.
Todd Henry with Hunt Gio and Associates.
Dawn Frazier, parish attorney.
Okay. Thank you all for that. So we know who's here and who's talking to whom. First item on our agenda is a discussion of the GM building. We had an inspection done by Hunt Gio Associates, and it was just returned to us September 29th, so it's very fresh. And we would open discussion on that right now. Any questions by any of the board members? You've all received a copy of that. Anybody have any questions or comments about that?
One is I know that a lot of the systems in the building have been shuttered, and for good reason, because they're not being utilized. Is there ever, when you reactivate those systems, if a tenant comes in, is there any, in y'all's experience, any type of long-term damage that's being done by having them hired?
Well, I'll introduce myself first. I'm the project manager for HGA. We have 3 disciplines that were involved. We have mechanical, electrical, and civil structural go out and do a one-day site inspection. So who I have with me today is Steve Lindsay. He oversaw and did the inspection for the electrical system. So I think to answer your question appropriately, I need to do that by discipline and by system. So the report kind of defines what the status is today, the condition of it, and what the recommendations are. So if you have a specific one about a particular system, whether it's HVAC or plumbing or fire protection, we can do that. But it's just general. I think it's going to be a little more specific than just a general answer that, yeah, if you mothball them correctly, you decommission them properly, then the startup is much easier, and probably a lot less damage done. But I don't know that there's a lot of damage done to the systems if you decommission them properly, which I think a lot of them are, which is spelled out.
So generally speaking, there's not any expected damage from closing down a building, as long as it's done right.
Correct.
If I can address that just from the point of view of what we've done primarily because before you here just take over big facilities like this. And when we take over a facility, we do an analysis of our capital costs maintaining things versus the minor damage and increased costs of mothballing things and to save money while you're rented. So that was done here, and I think the report basically verifies that we did that in a responsible way, right? To balance those issues. So any details on that, Debbie would be prepared to answer much more than me, but from a company philosophy, that's what we do.
Right. My question is not accusatory in any way.
Oh, no.
It was really a inquiry about mechanics.
I understand that not being in the real estate business, I just wanted to clarify that there's a reason why systems are shut down.
Oh, absolutely.
When you have a huge facility like this, and the reason why they're properly mothballed, right? And you're balancing things that you need to balance to make the project a success.
Completely understood why they're mothballed. I just want to make sure that we're not increasing any startup costs for a potential tenant by keeping them idle for long periods.
And in some cases, you are to a certain extent, but the analysis we do up front, is it worth that increased cost as opposed to the increased operating costs? It's a balancing act.
Completely understand.
So it would be not accurate to say that in some cases you are increasing the cost when you restart them up, but that's a deliberate decision.
Understood.
Great.
Yes, Bill?
The underlying purpose of the report or the need to do the inspection was also driven to identify compliance with our agreement. So HGA, did you, based on your findings in the report, compare that to our agreement in terms of compliance? That's a takeaway that this project needs to get.
Well, no, they weren't asked to look at the lease, and they wouldn't. All they did was inspect the project and provide this report as to the systems. The lease requires that Shreveport Business Park, operate and maintain the facility in good order and repair for the purposes for which it's been used, which implies that if there's parts of the property that aren't being used, that they're not obliged to keep everything up and running and the lights on and the air conditioning running on vacant area. That's not required by the lease. So I haven't seen anything that indicates that they're not keeping this property in the necessary condition under the terms of the lease for the purpose, for the uses which has been put at the current time. And they'll address these questions when we ask them to speak to you directly, but that wouldn't have been something we would have asked the project inspectors to do. That's a contractual review type of a job that's beyond the scope of their area of expertise.
Councilor, this body has had the challenge of trying to identify compliance, and I understand the feedback, and that's great, and we like that, but from a third party, that's why we went out for bid with engineering firms to help us do that assessment.
Yeah, we went out to get an assessment of how the building is, what shape it's in. That was their job, to give us a report on what shape is that building in. We are going to get some discussion we'll get some answers here shortly about some questions that will address what you're asking, Zell. Why don't we ask for that now?
Sure. I sent to you all earlier this week some questions that I sort of phrased, and also sent to you, the IRG folks, as a way to frame some of the issues that I know have been raised repeatedly, with the hope that it would serve as kind of a starting point and an outline of discussions, and that hopefully if they answer these questions and address these concerns, they will have, by the time the meeting's over, addressed most of the concerns that have been raised over the last few months and couple of years. Obviously, as Gard said, after they address these, if you all have additional questions or follow-up, or if anybody from the public wants to comment at the end of that period, there'll be an opportunity to do that. But you all asked to speak to the IRG folks directly. So here they are, and I think I'll just let them take the floor at this point and start to run through these
Understand
questions.
that we've had many questions over the last weeks and months. We've had many questions about the condition, about what is being done, what needs to be done, and so forth. We have relayed those questions to IRG. They will be addressing those now. So, and then if they haven't answered any question that you have, we're going to ask each one of the board members to have the opportunity to ask any more questions to amplify their comments. So, IRG would give us a little update right now, focusing specifically at this point on the GM building itself.
Let's start with the condition. Debbie, do you want to address these questions up here? Or take a shot at it and you jump in, whatever. So on some of this stuff, you'll have to forgive me, but I have had 170 projects around the country. So at times I will ask Debbie to jump in if I don't know the specific answers. But basically, as I tell them all forward, there's a reason why we've done everything we've done. We've spent considerable amount of money. I believe the sum so far is about $10 million on this facility and carrying it and maintaining it since we got involved. We are maintaining it to the level that, based upon what I just said earlier about those judgments. I think I can't specifically address the building C issue, so I think you'll have to address that, Debbie. Mm-hmm. And on the permits and certificates of occupancy, on the space that's currently being used, I think that we have at least temporary CFOs on everything.
When you say currently being used, is that used by Elio and DVR?
I believe so. And again, Debbie, you'll confirm that.
GLOVIS is or DVR is the only tenant in occupancy right now.
So Elio is not a tenant?
They have a lease with us, but they are not in occupancy.
A tenant, but not occupancy.
Correct.
So one of your clients is tenant and occupant.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And I believe that this temporary CFO
that should be remedied today, 11:30 today. There's the final permit walkthrough with the fire suppression group from our side. I don't know where DVR is with the improvements that they had to make. But from our side, we had the fire pump was working, the sprinklers are working in all the buildings. The Simplex system that's in there is a GM proprietary system, an older one. We are replacing that with a new fire system. And there was a situation where, given the boxes and the code changes, and they had come up with a fan that they have ordered, fixed, installed, and today would be the final inspection to give the certificate of occupancy.
But they've not been operating without a certificate of occupancy, with temporary certificate of occupancy,
which we are done fire watches.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, to provide for the occupancy, which is approved by the fire marshal.
Please go ahead.
So basically, the building C roof, I think you should address because I don't really know the details.
The building C roof, there's a portion of that building that the board probably knows that we have the opportunity, if we choose to demolish, because it didn't have an existing roof and because of the infrastructure that was underneath it. That is the oldest of the buildings in the complex. There are some issues, and what we've been doing is patching them as we go along until we occupy the building. When we occupy the building, we've already got it priced out. We know what it's going to cost us to replace the roof upon occupancy.
What Debbie's referring to is that in the pilot lease, there's explicit authority for them to demolish at their discretion about 250,000 square feet of existing building. So that was in poor condition at the time of the lease. So that the concern about them demolishing some building, that was covered by the lease. That was addressed originally. Nothing wrong with that. It was contemplated and within the terms of the lease.
Any questions on that subject?
I know you're using building C and this, that, and the other. So since there's only one tenant and occupant, as you speak, can you speak to the permitting and the status of things for that particular space as well? Just so we can follow and make any distinguishing.
That is where the fire marshal is going through today
That's
at 11:30.
11:30.
That is that meeting finished at the documents. Yes. And the only thing was they had to order a special fan in order to tie it into the system. And they've waited a number of weeks to get that. That was installed last week. They tested it. They tested all the systems. The only thing I cannot speak to is because of the use, there was some racking, and my understanding was a smoke curtain. And we have received an update on that. But our portion of it would be done. Any specific to their use, I don't know.
Yeah, and let me just clarify that again from the 30,000-foot level about how it works in the industry and real estate all over the country. Typically, when you do a lease, we would be responsible for the building things for general industrial use. There are tenants who have, fire explosive products. There are tenants who have things that require special things above the basic requirement. So what Anna was saying here is that, we are done with everything that we should need to do as building owners. We don't know every tenant's specific things, but the leases require that any upgrades over those standards is on them, since we don't always know what they're going to do in the space. They tell us what they're going to do, but we don't always know. If they show up with something that's explosive and all of a sudden need a new sprinkler system, that would usually be on them and not on us. That was what Anna was referring to when he said we get the CFO for the use of the building as industrial space.
So after today, you expect you'll have the CO for all the space that's going to be leased to DBR?
Yes, and they're going to take that fix that was designed to switch over the existing GM proprietary alarm system, right, and then apply it to the rest of the building. Okay. Which has always been the plan. It was coming up with a fix. It's the alarm system's tying in. The sprinkler, the fire pumps, everything is up and operational. The only thing we have to tie back in based on today's thing is that repetitive thing throughout the rest of the facility. It's tying in alarms back in.
And in the rest of the facility that's not being occupied, what's the status of the fire systems?
The fire systems in every building, right, are up and operational. It's the fire alarm tie-in from the old GM system, the proprietary GM system, that we've now identified how we change that, and we're upgrading the alarm system throughout all the buildings.
So GM had a fire alarm system proprietary to them that met codes, but we were in a position where we could not use their system because they would not give us the proprietary rates. So that's different than the sprinkler system. Just means the alarm systems we've had to redo in the building, even though they were there.
And that is an upgrade to the system, because the system, of course, was 20 years, old.
You're going to need that no matter what.
We would need that no matter what.
We need no matter what. Yeah. So instead of trying to tie something in with them, which was going to be almost as expensive, it would be a little cheaper if we somehow work something out with that whole thing. It was better to put in a new modern system, right? To upgrade the plan.
And we've been working very closely with the fire marshal to make sure that they're comfortable with what we're doing and the fire life safety is being handled.
Steve mentioned that you all spent about $10 million off the facility since you took over. Can you address, or can Debbie address, just the sort of the ongoing monthly expense, of just keeping the lights on and the HVAC running?
Debbie's going to address the specifics of it, but the number currently is probably about $200,000 a month.
About $200,000 a month, although in 2017 it's been higher. We have actual up through August and then projected for the remainder of the year. So instead of 2 point something a year, it's up to 3 point something a year for this year. And keeping the lights, that is also capital and operating.
But the $200,000 a month is without the big capital items. Is that right?
Largely.
Yeah.
Largely.
So basically the basic carry is roughly $200,000 a month. And then when we do things like upgrade the fire system and
that took us another $1 million this year.
It's above that number.
And just so you all know, the The lease requires that they submit quarterly financial reports, which they've been doing, and they have already submitted the report for the third quarter with that, which ended just less than 2 weeks ago. That was about a month earlier than the deadline that set the lease. We asked them to do that, and they submitted that along with the marketing report that I sent to you.
We'll be talking about those next.
What about the outside, the external upkeep and maintenance? What's this, can you speak to that?
That's also in that number.
The activity, like what kinds of things that you guys see that you upgrade, and particularly, like I said, if it's idle, some things you don't do, got tenants you do, can you speak to just the general maintenance on the external?
Well, if you're talking about landscaping, for instance, in an unoccupied property, you can usually bush hog and do so every 3 weeks. Roughly, when you're occupied, you go to a better level of grass cutting, and it'd be every other week, and depending on the weather. So that's the kind of the distinction between cold idle, unoccupied space, and occupied space.
Brown scrap, I mean, just not the landscaping, just there's more to be done for external upkeep. So
right.
I can't cherry pick each one. I'm just asking you to kind of just speak to that.
And we'll periodically go through with a Zamboni type of thing, and the unoccupied areas will pick up debris and that type of thing. And you talked about scrap. On anything that was scrapped or removed, any of the scrap was taken off of the property. Actually, they had these large metal magnets that picked up any of the scrap that was on the property, because they did stockpile it in certain areas.
This only relates indirectly to GM, but would you make a comment to give us an overview about perhaps other areas where you have taken over a facility like this and then turned it into something else? Could you give us an example or two about other areas around the country and a timeline on how that worked? How long it took to...
So that's kind of switching over to the marketing team here, and I'm happy to do that. So,
okay.
So basically, this has been the heritage of our company since I started in business at age 24. If you believe me, that's quite a long time ago. And we're, in effect, the only company in the country that does this on a nationwide basis. So I could give you an extremely long list. I think at the top of that list, the biggest deal we ever did was the one I referred to earlier, which is we did an entire Air Force Base in California, which was 3 miles by 5 miles, with 800 buildings on it, 700 homes, entire airfield. We took our entire U.S. zip code. We took our entire U.S. zip code vacant. We did that 16 years ago. There are presently 200-something companies on the site. There are over 15,000 people employed on the site. It's essentially an operating city. Right now, when we read about the fires, one of the deals we did is that the California firefighting fleet had no central location for maintenance, and it was very inefficient. So all these planes that fly in to fight those fires are actually based at our base, right? And so right now we're very, very busy handling that, and they're going in and out. We're fueling them. That's one of the 200-something tenants on the site. So we're actively involved in fighting those fires with them. Just taking GM plants, we acquired basically 4 GM plants in this last bankruptcy round. 2 of them were in Pontiac, Michigan. They are essentially about 85% leased, totaling a couple of million square feet, with probably 7 or 8 companies in there. In the last 6 months, we've done 2 deals there, one with Mahindra and one with IM Branded. Mahindra actually lived here, right? It's one of the tenants that lived here. And we ended up doing a deal with them in another GM plant. And they have about 75 jobs there, and IM Branded has about 75 jobs, but that's just 2 of the larger number of companies that we've put in, that facility. We also acquired a GM plant in Moraine, Ohio, which was about 4 million feet. We demolished about 500,000 feet of that to make the rest of the space usable. And we have about 3 companies in there, but one of them is 100% occupied. One of them is a company called Fuyao Glass, which is the biggest auto glass manufacturer in China, controlling about 70% of the market, puts glass in about 18 million cars a year in China, and it was the first new auto glass plant in the United States in the last 30 years, and it's built to provide enough glass to take 20% of the auto glass market in the United States. They currently have over 2,000 people employed. They've expanded the building 3 times since they came in 2 years ago, and it's 100% occupied. Your plant is the 4th GM plant that I acquired, but we haven't been quite as successful as the other 3, to be honest about it, and there's a lot of reasons for that, which I'm happy to go into my perceptions of those reasons. We acquired 4 plants from Delphi in the same period. They're all at least 60 or 70% leased. In the last 6 months alone, if we talk about our success as a company leasing, we have done a 1 million square foot deal with Amazon with 2,000 jobs in another facility in Ohio. We've done a deal with Faraday Future on 1 million square feet, and they also live here, right? In California, which is a large number of jobs, and I could go down a list. We've done deals in the last 6 months with Sherwin-Williams in Ohio for 200 jobs, Federal Health 50, Wuxing, which is a major company, for 200. Former American Greens facility, we've done 4 deals in the last 6 months to names you wouldn't recognize, but a total of about 400 to 500 jobs. We've done deals with Comprehensive Logistics, PSI, the Mahindra one, the IM Branded, Revenue Group, 200 jobs. Premier Packaging. I'm only listing the larger deals that are about 75 jobs and over in the last 6 months.
So yes, could you drill that down and speak to your challenges here? I mean, what are some hot projects that you may have or may have had? And, my profession is economic development.
Well, that's on the agenda. This
Can I?
few items down on the agenda. Let's follow the agenda.
He mentioned if he could drill down more, and I'm just reflecting back to what I think.
I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to go in whichever order you guys want to go.
It's whatever the president wants.
Well, let's follow the agenda.
Okay.
Did you want to add anything more? That's certainly a sufficient answer.
Right. The only thing I could say is the one thing I know is that most brokers, I don't think it's statistically kept, but since we are probably the only nationwide company that buys empty space, most people say we have created more jobs and brought more companies into empty space in the United States than any company in this country. Right? And I don't know that's true because nobody keeps the statistics, but I know that all the brokers who operate in the industrial area tell us that. Right? And I know the number of projects we've done, and I know the success we've had everywhere. So that is what I know.
And I think this is where you were going, but number 3 is, number 4 is explain the reasons for those prospects who moved here and went elsewhere. What is it that we didn't have that the other locations had?
Okay, so I'll let Otto do a lot of that answer, right? But he's one who's dealt with that. But you do have certain disadvantages that are built in and are not fixable from the point of view of trained workforce, location, highway access, cross highways, things like that. And I'll let Otto go into both the things that we think we took on knowing we had challenges, and we've succeeded other places. We buy lots of facilities with challenges like that, right? So I don't want to overemphasize that, and we succeed, and then also into the things that are, kind of specific to here. But I also know, because I know, that this has become a big political football in this community, that there's a lot of total misinformation that's been out there about deals that we've lost that went nowhere, right? And where the perception is put out that those deals went somewhere, right? So many of the deals, when you're in my business, a lot of times you're used as a stalking horse for people to beat up the place they're presently located at. And you get a really big sniffer, and you play the game, and you try to work those deals, but at the end of the game, you're used as a stalking horse. Right? And in many, many deals, people are looking at space hoping to get a contract. And in many deals, they have a division that wants to do something, and they take you very far down the road, and then when they go internally for approval, there is no deal. So some of the deals that the press and certain politicians here have made a whole huge issue that we did things to make the deal not happen. If you get through all the fluff and the BS, there never was a deal, and the company never went anywhere else. That being said, there are a couple of deals that did go somewhere else, and I'll let Ano address those.
Okay. So as Stu was saying, there are many reasons that somebody comes and looks at a project and is building a project. As we've said from the first day we arrived here, right, that given the facility, given the assets in this facility, it was built as a single tenant, single purpose facility. When we look at that, right, we need to, for lack of a better word, harpoon the whale. We're looking at very large clients. When we come into a situation, we look at two things. What does the building tell us it wants to be? And in this case, it is clearly, right, manufacturing. What is the best benefit for the community? It is clearly manufacturing. Those jobs are better. Then we have to go back and say, what does the community generate, right? The deals that are generated in this community are smaller deals. The smallest building we have is 860,000 square feet. The deals, most of them in this community are between 50 and 100 as a big deal. That is a big deal. We're not rolling with 250,000 square foot deals. Those buildings are designed for manufacturing. What does that mean? Right? They have heavy power, they have a lot of things that are wonderful manufacturing, but they don't have a lot of docks. They're set up in a just-in-time manufacturing situation. So we've got to convert, if we decide we're not going to try and harpoon the whale anymore, we've got to convert those buildings to something else. Adding the docks, adding whatever. So we've worked hard to protect the areas and land outside the building so that we can redock and be flexible. As we move through the lease that we're doing, there's not a lot of interior space that's being taken. Right? There's exterior land. We've had some additional calls for exterior land, but as we move through this situation, we've got to transition into bringing in tenants that create jobs, maybe for a different purpose, maybe not as heavy manufacturing, and more warehousing. Because that's what the market is starting to tell us. We're starting to get 3PL requirements in some of these buildings that if we go through the list, which we can go if you guys want me to.
What is 3PL? I don't say
third-party logistics providers. So if somebody makes a widget, but they don't want to deliver to their clients, these guys pick it up at your manufacturing facility and then deliver it to either the client, the store, or the next deliverable end of the chain, the supply chain. So they are integral part of the supply chain.
So I know a question, before you go through the list, you also should do that, and I'm talking about the tenants. We have one that's 3PL. Can you speak to the probability, and Mr. Lichter, since the one that we do have, and I know you guys are in negotiations, I'm not asking about negotiations, but I am asking, what's the probability of getting a lease extension, and they're here? So, I mean, those are creating jobs. They're a tenant for you guys. You guys are getting revenue off of it. Just a general question. Is this just a one-year lease, and we're in October? And I know you guys have been working on it most of the year. So can you guys speak to that?
Our original lease was set up to be completed in 90 days. At the 90-day period, they were still unsure what they were doing, so we have negotiated with them in good faith throughout this period, and it is a one-year lease. We have a meeting today to meet with them, sit down and see if we can iron out the points that are left over. It appears there's an increase in those points. We had thought we were down to 2 and notified both the board and the parish that we were down to 2 points. We received a number of other emails that suggested it wasn't the 2 points that we all agreed to. So we're having a meeting today. Stu flew in today to sit down and we can hammer that out. I can't really make promises for a third party. We're here. And we're here in full force.
It's great that they're
we want
here,
to make
so
a
that's
deal. We
good.
absolutely want to make a deal. So I hope that can be accomplished.
We have kind of morphed here from item 4A to item 4C, and that's okay. We'll just come back to 4B. But Giselle, did you get your questions answered?
Yeah.
Do you have any more about? I think we're kind of in that area where I thought you were going was 4C.
He asked the question that she had.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they've already answered it. So
all right.
Any other questions about the GLOVIS lease and other leasing activities? 4C. Is there anything you all want to offer about that?
I can tell you that I will be back down here next week with a group that we have soon to be a tenant in our Pearl River, New York facility. I mentioned this facility to them. We are coming back next week. At the same time, both Zell and I have talked to a transloading facility in Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I have another call with him. I talked to him twice last night. I have another call with him this afternoon, and he may come over at the same time if the ground is available.
But that tenant is inconsistent with the GLOVIS occupancy because
they are a heavy rail user.
They're a heavy rail user.
Exterior space.
Services. Some people are present in the market that helps retain those people in the market, but they are a either or, not an end to GLOVIS. And they're coming next week and are very interested, but everybody should be clear that when we go through the list of prospects, it's an either or.
Does any other board member have any questions about it?
I just wanted to ask to follow up on things about our market that maybe aren't related to the plan that some groups find problematic. I know you mentioned workforce. Are there other items?
We can give you a couple specifics. I think there was a couple, there's a reference in here, a couple specifics. One of the ones Faraday that he had talked about, we knew Dag, who runs the manufacturing for them from the Tesla days. His comment to me was, what their product was, this would be a product generating situation, what their product was, if we were west of the Rockies, he would sign today. Right? Most electric cars sold are west of the Rockies. It was part of their marketing, their thought process. His other comment to me was, you can't get here from the West Coast. So that becomes a theme with a lot of people that get a first class flight in here. The only one that I know of is from Delta out of Atlanta, and from the West Coast, that's problematic because you're flying an hour and a half past Shreveport, waiting for an hour or two, and flying an hour and a half back. American or United may have one, but to my knowledge, that's the only one. Mahindra, who their thought process was, given their company, given their product, and the direction they were looking to go, Mahindra, who we brought down here from our relationships in Detroit, Mahindra decided that they felt they needed to be in the Detroit market, which was the heart of the auto industry. So for them, same problem was we ended up flying them down here direct in order to get them here because we couldn't get their executives to say, I'll take the time off, I don't have time to do that. So it was a clear-cut case. We ended up flying directly here for that reason. Workforce, skilled labor is an issue everywhere. Is it available? Is it not? And that is so dependent, right, on a specific industry. So, as Stu pointed out, what happens a lot of times we become a stalking horse. I think the state is not in the same position incentive-wise that it was when they did the $900 million deal with the German firm. And from my understanding is that there have been significant incentives granted in other states. There was a large user right here.
You know that went somewhere else with all over incentives. Is that correct? Or over other issues also?
No, the first two we talked about, right? We're just with location. No, we're location. Now if we're going to that, right? One of the deals stayed in Texas, incentive based. One of the other deals actually went to Arkansas, incentive driven.
Are you saying that the state of Arkansas and Texas offered more incentives?
That's my understanding. We never see the final. We just hear what they tell us.
Just to be clear, we don't want to say something as fact. We can only say what they told us the reason was.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have absolutely no direct knowledge that that's what the decision was. And, in the economic incentive game, as it was always done, right, you find a stalking horse. So somebody as a site selector, and that's one of the things that I think a lot of people mistake. Site selectors are not inclusive. And people tend to believe they are. Just that they're coming here and they're bringing us and they're doing whatever. They are not inclusive. Site selectors, when they get down to 5, start to get close. 3, they start to get attention. And when they get rid of everybody else, they get paid. So in that basis, a lot of people say, oh, they're coming here. I talked to site selector, I had a great relationship with them. The reality is, they've got an idea of where they really want to be. They need at least one more on an incentive basis, sometimes 2, to leave it open. So that is the way that game is played, and we have been used as a stalking horse a number of times. When the LEP had the, what was that, for 6-month option on the facility, clearly we were the stalking horse. They really didn't spend the money that they were going to spend here doing the evaluation they said they were going to do, nor was an extension even asked for.
This isn't actually a part of the agenda, but I would be remiss if I did not say to you all, as site people looking for sites and talking to people looking for sites. Recently, the state and the local governments banded together and built a $24 million manufacturer training facility at Caddo Parish Community College, just across the river. And for those who might be looking for a trained workforce, that's an opportunity where they can actually create their own criteria for that training.
They are extremely helpful, Brother Lee. Thank you for bringing that up. We have met with them. We have toured with them. The other thing that I have mentioned to a lot of tenants, I think there's an asset in Marksville Air Force Base who sits out there with a lot of quality people training, retaining them workforce here. So what we're telling you is not our perception as much as it is what we're hearing and how it compares to somewhere else they're looking based on incentives.
I appreciate it.
And that's when we're at the 1,000-foot level with the big clients.
According to the validity of your dialogue, the concern or problem is much larger than everyone that's in this room right now.
There are real issues, like Bono said, getting this facility leased that relate to both the nature of the facility, that we have to adjust it to the market, the location, workforce in the community, the incentives that are available. But, I think where you're going is it's also true that now, because of the way this thing has gone, every company that comes here at least raises the issue, am I welcome? You guys have become what I call a circular firing squad, right? And it has not been helpful. Now, can I sit here and say that has destroyed the deal? I can't say that. And again, I would never say something that isn't true. But I would say that there's a real perception among the people who come here now, what are these people doing? I mean, they're taking shots at the people who are trying to lease the building, right? And it is an issue. Has it become a critical issue? No, it has not become a critical issue. But it is not helpful. It is not helpful when it's perceived that political people, for whatever reason, are making issues about things being scams, when it's people spending a lot of money trying to get into business, whether they succeed or fail. It is not helpful. And there are negative newspaper articles. I'm a big boy and I can take it. I don't really care. All I care about is succeeding and bringing jobs here and making this facility work, right? But I have never in 40 years had a place where I feel less supported by the community and less supported by the people here. And it's not everybody, so I'm not throwing darts, but I would be remiss if I didn't state that, right? I'm personally investing millions and millions of dollars, both in the facility and in trying to get something here that would create a lot of jobs if it succeeds, and I have no idea whether it will succeed or not. And I don't make any promises. All I can say is I'm spending millions of dollars trying to make that happen, and I have people throwing arrows at me, right? And I don't care about people throwing arrows at me. I care about the fact that it's destructive to our efforts to make this facility successful, right? That's what I care about. I don't take it personally. I can take all the arrows in the world, right? But it's not serving your community for those arrows to be being thrown. That's what I care about.
Well, if I could add, Mr. President, thank you. This is a community that I think one of the things that you may have experienced is an attempt for some sort of balance, accountability, transparency in the event that the community feels that that's not being received. This is an industrial development board, and one of the things we want to help accelerate and generate is support of companies like yours, like your tenant here, and your occupant, both. We have interest in seeing the deals work. We have also interest in your prospects. So from NLEP standpoint, we have offered to be a resource because we can do things to help complement your efforts. Certainly you're the experts and the leaders, but to your point, feeling things are against, you do have allies here, you and others like you. It is to our benefit for Caddo Parish to receive jobs, all kinds of jobs, low-paying jobs, high-paying jobs. So you have a small, I thought Anna was the only one. I've met you before, but you have a small group. So you have a whole team with Louisiana Economic Development, NLEP, North Louisiana Economic Partnership. I'm submitting an RFI today, submitting of 4 sites. One of them is Caddo. Is the facility. The one that Arnold just mentioned, if there's some challenges communicating with you, we get those calls and I can help say, hey, where are we on this? From a teaming standpoint. So the implication that you're out here and torpedoed and that kind of thing, I can speak on behalf of the community. When the community isn't spoken to, they only can rely on their own speculation. And it's a spirit of, it's in the spirit of knowing what's happening. When other tenant that's been put out before them, i.e. Elio, there's an expectation that was set. So we're not here to talk about that, but I'm addressing the point that you made. And it's about that kind of thing. So we're here to help NLEP. There's workforce development programs. As Gard mentioned on the Bentler deal that was done, that's all to kind of address some of those things. So whatever we can do, then we're here and available to help assist.
I have no intention to get defensive in any way. And anything we're not doing right in terms of transparency or any other help, we want to fix.
Yeah.
So because we all should be teammates here to make this thing happen. Right? That's what we should be doing. And to the extent that we're not doing our part in that, we want to fix it. We don't want to be defensive. We want to listen with an open mind. That we don't if we don't feel you guys are reporting properly, we're here because our only objective is to make sure that the relationship is good and everybody is rowing this boat in the same direction.
Thank you.
Right? And that's the only thing we want. Great.
Thank you very much. Brother Chris, you had a question?
Stu, first, thanks for being here. I have one question about all this, and you're probably the only guy in the world that can answer it because of what you do. I just want to get an idea. What is the frequency of a deal for a plant this size. So say you are trying to harpoon the whale, how many times does that deal come along? Is it once a year? Is it once every 10 years? Like, what's the...
It really depends on where. I told you about the plants that, the 2 GM plants in Detroit where we had a huge amount of success. Right? Frankly, we're riding a wave there because in 2008, the automobile industry collapsed. A lot of buildings were knocked down. Now the automobile industry's recovered and there's no facilities. So the frequency of deals there is really different than the frequency of deals in Shreveport. Sure. Because those same car companies, they all rely on an entire network of suppliers. And unfortunately, as you know, GM left here, that network left here. So the odds of us getting a whale of a car plant here, other than somebody like Elio, who has a need and really doesn't care where the other suppliers are because they save so much money if they get into business coming here. It's very unlikely we'll get a car company. Okay? So the frequency of those whales depends on a lot of other things. It'll be a lot higher in Detroit than it'll be in Shreveport. Right? And then frankly, in the next recession, and the car industry is bad, it'll be a lot higher in Shreveport than in Detroit. Yeah. But right now, that place is running away. Okay. But in a place like Wilmington, where we brought in a Chinese rail car company, that's a lot like Shreveport. It's a secondary market, right? And we just landed the whale, right? We landed China Railroad building rail cars.
And how long did that take?
How long did that take? Maybe a year?
It took a year. It varies, It's the cycle. Who wants to be there? What do you have? I mean, when we look at this, the whale, to get more specific about the car company that's to address, this facility was designed to build 60 cars an hour. Right. Most of the car companies we talked to, we're talking about 6. Right. And then, ramping up to 16, maybe.
I'm just trying to get an idea for all of that aside. That's all very helpful information. I'm just like globally, how many times a year is there a company that needs 3 million square feet? They can't be that often.
No, we got to do 3 million square feet. Yeah, in our world, in this building, what we've been trying to do is do 2, 3, 4, 500,000 square foot deals. At some point, we have to start investing the money to add loading docks so that we do smaller deals. But if you do that, you're more likely talking warehousing, less jobs, less quality jobs, right? Not high paying jobs. So we have not taken that step. Right. So a lot of those little deals basically will fit in a corner if we can, but you just really don't fit this building.
That answers my question. I'm trying to get a level set of what to expect.
Right. And if you put them in the wrong space, right, then you've got to work around them, and maybe you lose a deal because you can't move them because the timing to move their operation. So if we can get a couple of anchors in, and there are a couple in here that are a little bit bigger, if we get an anchor or 2 in, we can build around that.
Yeah.
Build on them.
Right. And that being said, I mean, this is by far on the slow end of how fast we succeed in places. I don't want to get defensive about it. It just is. Right.
Well, McGinnis has a question.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to sort of follow up on the community feeling. I don't know this, but I think that the community with GM left felt like a deal was going to be struck to get the same type of tenant with the same type of jobs in the same industry. And when I go to Mississippi and I drive by the Nissan plant, right? I go to see the Tesla plant in California. It looks to me that auto plants are designed in a different way now. And so really my question is, I think the community, and I guess I'm asking, is the community expectation that we're going to have a brand name auto manufacturer to come in here and do just what GM is doing? Is that at all realistic?
So let me ask you a question two ways. Right. One, you're correct. Auto plants today look nothing like auto plants of old. That being said, you have the auto plant of today or close to it. Because what it's migrated to is this place where the loading docks are at every point on the line and this whole crisscross. So you have a facility that still could work for an auto company, as opposed to a lot of these older plants where it's actually cheaper for them to build a more efficient layout. Right? So that's the good news. Right? The bad news is what we don't have is the infrastructure in the community and around the place and the distance, because they're so focused on their suppliers being close to them. So generally, when we go out to the auto market, and we got a number of those people here, you know, the reaction we get is, oh my God, the plant is fantastic. You know, if you could pick it up and move it, we will pick it. And again, I just want to be brutally honest, right? But as fantastic as it is, we will not go into it in Shreveport. So the difference with Elio, frankly, you know, if they ever get business, right, is they have a bunch of the suppliers who, because of their volume proposition, and they're convinced that if they get business, the volume will be so large, have indicated the willingness to do what GM did and to locate down here to be close to them. Great. And so there are 2 or 3 suppliers that would actually ameliorate that issue for that user. Right? But that is, if it ever happened, then we all know they have difficulty raising money. So you know, I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to happen or not happen, right? But you know, they have unique reasons why they would be here, because the equipment's useful to them, and because, you know, the concern to them is the amount of the startup cost, and it lowers their startup costs. So they're willing to accommodate all these other deficiencies, because what's important to them is startup costs. But all the people that startup cost isn't you know, that relevant, basically, you know, to be totally blunt, like crap upon the location. You know, again, I just want to be honest, not on the facility, because the facility, you know, is still fairly modern, current design facility.
It's a just-in-time facility.
Mr. Rice has a question.
What do we need to do to help you?
So I think, basically, I think a whole lot better relationship with the LED would be really good. Right. A lot more open discussion on both sides would be really good.
You mean you refer to state, right?
Yes. Right.
Just want to make that clear.
When I say we, I'm talking about the community.
Right. Us
politicians.
Yeah. So that basically, frankly, the biggest single thing you can do is to present a positive image that you're welcoming to the community, and that you're supportive of all the efforts that's going on, and an open door where every prospect that shows up, we can sit with you and try to understand how we can induce them to come here. Right? Because you know, we need to induce them to come here, right? Frankly. The first and most immediate thing to do is that there's a way to stop the chatter. It's not helpful. Right? We're out there spending huge amounts of money. Our heart and soul is in this, right? You know, and you know, and frankly, I'm not going to speak to myself personally. You know, I am determined to make things happen, and I am determined to succeed. It's just the way I'm built, and I am not Twitter, so I will succeed. But you know, it would be great if everybody here was aligned to help us succeed, instead of, I don't know whether, I can't judge people's motives. So I don't know whether it's a political game going on here, or I don't know whether people actually believe we're out there trying to scam people. I don't know. I don't care, right? But quieting the chatter would help this community. And the message of we support business, we want business, we appreciate everybody's efforts to bring business here, right? And we understand that sometimes businesses succeed and sometimes they fail. They don't raise the money, right? Yeah, because that's all that's happening. There's millions of dollars being spent for Elio to try to succeed, and there's millions of dollars spent to maintain this plant and to try to bring people here, right? And anybody who thinks anything else is either serving a political purpose or is plain freaking stupid, because it's obvious. But the press and the politicians, and excuse me if I'm being really blunt, right? And to the extent that the people here keep putting out other things, it's a circular fire disorder. And
we've had definitely an unfortunate experience in that, going back to the beginning, the Elio project had such high expectations, unrealistically high expectations, that I think it tainted the whole environment. And unfortunately, there's been so much misunderstanding about that, and so many strong opinions expressed with frankly a lack of understanding, that it's hurt everybody. But I think things like this is what helps. And Stu, if I could offer one piece of advice, keep doing this. I know you're busy, and I know you've got 170 projects going around the country, but the more time that you can spend here and let your activities be known and let people talk to you and hear what you have to say, the better this is going to be, and the easier it's going to be perhaps to dispel some of the negative misunderstandings that are being expressed. Thank you for coming here today, and I think we've covered. Does any other members have any other questions about items 4A or 4C? Do we want to go into 4B, the discussion of the marketing and maintenance reports that have been submitted? I think you've already covered a lot of that.
What I would like to do, Garvey, is some people really might not understand. I'd like to make one more comment about Elio.
Okay. And David wants to make a comment. You want to? I think David has something that's relevant, and then we'll call on him.
I did want to just add one thing, Les, because Stu mentioned incentives and incentives offered by other states and so forth. Lest anybody think that there are no incentives attached to this deal, the pilot lease, the maybe biggest part of the pilot lease, is that it extends a 12-year property tax exemption on the entire planet. So that is a huge incentive that's built into this transaction already. And the savings in property taxes that are accruing as a result of that are an incentive that's available to be passed along to prospective tenants. So again, lest anybody think that the incentives haven't already been talked about or negotiated or agreed to, they're already part of the deal.
Yeah.
That's all
And we didn't even imply at all that there's no incentives. We just meant to state that
sometimes you get out
between communities, it's a bidding war.
Yeah, it's a bidding war.
And whether the feedback is accurate or not, the two tenants that we know we actually lost to someplace else both gave that as a reason. And again, it's third-party information. I don't know the incentives they got, so I don't know whether that's accurate or not. I can only take them at their word. That was the reason given to us, as opposed to the facility or the workforce or other things.
But you wanted to make one more point.
So the one statement I want to make is because there's been a lot of
about Elio,
right? Because there's been a lot of chatter about that, right? And everybody can interpret people's motives any way they want. But what I've done over the past 40 years on a number of occasions to try to create jobs, right, and to try to fill my buildings, also from a totally selfish point of view, is trying to help companies get business when I thought the person was right and the concept was right. And I've done this in a number of places where it's worked, and I've profited, jobs have been created, and I've done this a number of occasions where I put the money up and it didn't work. We recently put up money for a company in Ohio that was going to recycle the waste stream, right? And they were in business for 2 years, it created a bunch of jobs, and now they're failing, and I'm going to lose a bunch of money, right? And I did it to fill my building, right, and to create jobs. I helped a company called Tire Rack back in South Bend, Indiana, which is now a major American corporation, right? And they were operating out of their garage when they came to me in the building and told me their business model and said, we need space, we can't afford to pay for it. right? And I basically gave them space, and they're a major corporation now in your community, right? And I helped start them. So you know, and what I do with Elio, because I believe it's a great concept and should get in business, is I agreed to help them, right? I'm not the majority stockholder like the press reported. I do not control the company. I do not control the decisions, right? I help them to try to get them into a facility in Shreveport, Ohio, in Shreveport, Louisiana, to create jobs, and it worked out, I would profit, right? I have many millions of dollars into it, and I have never, ever, ever let that relationship endanger a deal in this building. On one occasion, we put another building in Shreveport under contract. We spent probably $200,000 on due diligence and lawyers, just because there might be a deal in this building that would need their space, right? So now
You made arrangements for them to move.
Yeah, I made arrangements for them to move. So now you can't look in a person's heart, so certainly somebody could look at that as either excusing a conflict of interest position, and he's selling Shreveport down, to help Elio, or you could look at it, he made this investment to help Shreveport, right? And I know which is true, right? And I just wanted to make that statement because there's been so much swirl and misinformation about it that I just wanted to put that out there and make a clear statement about it.
I think, Mr. Chairman, I think the concept of the Elio concern is mainly from individuals making dialogue that they had given monies to him personally for his company standing up and then trying to throw your company under the bus. Because that concept have been portrayed in various dialogue conversations to the public, not for the community, but on the state level. In particular, the meeting that your company and Elio and other entities were called to in the chamber some time ago. So I think the misconception has nothing to do with you helping Elio, but the misconception has something to do with individuals putting upfront monies into his hand, and it has created a misconception in the community's mind that there may have been some type of mishandling of business or mishandling of funds up front, and that have created an emotional disaster in several of the individuals' minds and their hearts in this community. So the misconception really has nothing to do with you, the individual, or your company. It has something to do with that lifeline that you have kept connected, trying to help this entity start up their business.
Okay, thank you.
So I think it has nothing to do.
Any other questions by any of the members? Anybody? Okay. Stu, anything else you all want to say?
I'm good.
All right. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. You want to talk about the IRG, the marketing report? Sure. Yeah. Are there any questions about the marketing report? We have a marketing report.
Any questions? We can. Yeah, it does say what's kind of going on here, but the specific questions, do you want me to go through them, or how would you like me to handle that?
Are there any things about the report that you want to point out?
We've got, there seems to be some activity again. We've got the group that we're bringing down from New York, right? Which I think is very positive, a good kickstart here, and a good building block potentially for second tier suppliers for them. The oilfield service material group, we're still waiting on them. We've got the Transrail loading group from Dallas that will kind of update later today and let them know kind of where we are and what's available. We've got some contracts that have not been awarded, so we can't take them off the plate. 2 of them would be the same opportunity. I think if you scan halfway down, you've got a 400,000 square foot and a 360,000 square foot opportunity. Both of them, I think, are the same deal that is provided by a third-party logistic provider wanting to win the deal.
It's 2 companies looking for the same contract.
Right.
So each company contacts you, but they're so similar in what they're looking for. We know it's 2 companies looking for the same contract.
So that's what
and there could be 6 more companies looking for that contract based on other facilities.
Yeah, so they're talking to you prospectively if they get the contract.
They're talking to us prospectively if they get the contract. And what usually happens in those contracts is to get the contract, they have to have a facility because the company giving the contract wants to know they have a place.
Right.
So their bid is attached to this facility, to those 2 companies. What we don't have visibility to is when there's 5 more companies bidding based on other facilities. So we did end up no deal on one of those 2 deals, but not both of those 2 deals.
So
or the contract can never be issued.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
One question that came out of a comment you made earlier. You said you were talking to a company that was antithetical to GLOVIS.
That's the real.
That's the real
transloading company.
Can you say a little more about that?
The details, they need the same rail, they need the same land, they need the same ground.
Okay, so you couldn't have both.
You couldn't have both there. It's one or the other.
I got you.
So
does this give some additional emphasis or some additional importance to getting a deal done with GLOVIS?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We want to do the deal with GLOVIS, and we're here, I think, in support of that deal.
Okay, so that's another reason why you're in town.
Absolutely. We want to be here. We want to make this deal, and I'm here, Stu's here, Debbie's here.
Now, with all of these folks here, is it? I mean, I see both the partners from GLOVIS are here. All the principals from IRG are here. Is it? Can we expect that something can be done while you're here?
We hope so. We're here in support of doing that.
We would certainly like to see that.
We would too.
We would certainly like to see
We would too.
Yeah, it would be wonderful to come to a resolution.
Yeah, we're on the same page and we're in full support of getting that done today.
Well, thank to all of you for being here. And I speak to GLOVIS as well as to IRG for that. Anything else?
Question on your marketing. We did talk about Houston and everything and any prospects because of the impact of the flood.
Yes.
You're doing any marketing specific to that event?
Yes, matter of fact, I've been on the phone. There are short term, which is still okay. For a lot of distribution centers, the bigger Home Depot, the staging. So I'm talking through a real estate firm in Houston and talking about staging in some of the buildings. So what we didn't see as much as I think was seen from my talking to realtors both in New Orleans, Nashville, Memphis, whatever. We have had one requirement out of Houston that was a Memphis-based scenario, again short term. But we didn't see it the same as what we had with New Orleans. So I don't know whether their industrial area was damaged as severely as it was with the New Orleans situation. In the sense I'm getting, it's more the home destruction, because what we're talking to mainly is home improvement repair companies looking to stage to provide support to the Houston area. So I think that there's a different amount of damage done to different areas in those 2 situations.
And I've got one question on just the marketing report itself. Is there a timeline? So in other words, is this a monthly report that you've heard from all these prospects or have reached out, email, call, whatever?
As this comes in, this probably starts in late
2016, if I look at some of the first ones on here. It runs through today.
Okay.
Keep the update. We can drop, we can put it into 2 pages where one is truly dead deals and one is ongoing, but we check with anybody active here on a regular basis. See what we need to do and how we bring them in. And oftentimes the scenario is we're waiting for the contract to be let or it's gone back to committee, and so we keep that whole status and rotate it on a per agreement with each person. Hey, we should know by X.
Yeah.
Sometimes in here you'll see it, and I try and make it more general, first quarter, second quarter, because things don't always happen on a business schedule as they indicate that it will.
Did you get an idea of one place where we could do better? We should be in constant touch with LED and local people on every lead they have.
That's the LED.
Yeah, right.
Yes,
That's
right. I know, it does.
I can give you an example of that. I mentioned earlier the deal with Free Out Glass, where they've expanded 3 times. They're in a million-something fee. They have 2,000 jobs going to 3,000 jobs. The reason that deal happened is the fellow who owns that, one of the 50 richest people in China, right? He wanted every plant to be the same, and he was looking for a greenfield new building, and he was looking at 5 states, and Ohio never would have gotten that. It wasn't even on the list of states. and Ohio succeeded in getting on the list of states, and because they told us of the deal, even though it was greenfield only, we said in the existing building, we could save them so much money, get us a meeting. And we got his US people sold for the amount of money that we could save him not doing a greenfield. Ohio never would have won if it was new construction. It was the building that made them win. And because we got the local people, right? The local people basically begged the owner, you should come look at this. And we had to prepare a dinner in conference rooms, and the U.S. people said, we don't know, he's so fixed to a greenfield, we don't know whether he's going to take one look and walk out, or whether he's going to make a deal with you guys, because he was only interested in the greenfield. Right? And he walked in, said, let's go to dinner, and at dinner said, how late are you prepared to stay tonight? And because I'm either leaving doing a deal on your building or I'm building a new building. And 6 hours later, we had a deal. But the only reason it happened is because we had a good relationship with the state economic development people, and they shared every lead and worked with us. Right? And there's now 2,000 to 3,000 people working there, and it's growing, and it's changed the entire area. So,
well, a lot of the incentives now are, and Dr. Wilson, Stuart here, not forced, but from a state level, a lot of them are taking place locally, not just in Caddo, but across the state. So I invite you and Anno, as you get leads and deals, make sure you include us.
Of course, who is us?
Well, I'm putting the NLEP hat on now because you're representing LED and state.
Yeah.
But there are several, because I'm speaking in terms of economic development organizations that can rally the community, and I've seen it happen, but usually those are projects that we are done or driven by LED. But as you have leads, then that can work reverse. Like you said, we're a team and we're working together. We just want to help land the deal.
Absolutely.
So I'm just putting that out there as a resource.
And I think what we're saying is the optics. Sometimes in deals so big, they never make it to the real estate market. They make it direct. The first contact is states. Right.
And we bring those.
And so, he's saying the more of those we see and the more detail we know, the better off we can position this asset, to win in a larger scale.
The one today I'm submitting is state.
Great.
So that's happening, I guess.
Well, again, thank you all very much for being here, and we're going to move on to public comments. We have 2 requests here. Commissioner Lewis Johnson is here, and Lewis, we adopted the rules before you got here that said that we would ask everybody to try to limit their comments to 3 minutes. But go ahead and address the board with any questions you would like.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good
morning. I'm Commissioner Lewis Johnson, and I too thank you for being here on this morning. Just for clarity's sake, I want to, and I appreciate what you were saying about the importance of the community and the parish being business friendly. We understand that, we embrace that, and we're always working to do a better job in that respect. My questions are, I want to make sure that I understood you properly, Mr. Ono, as it related to life safety is my concern. So as relates to the plant itself, it's presently operating under a temporary CO.
That is correct, for the tenants there, that is correct.
Okay, and the system itself is operational, I think is the term you use?
Yes.
Okay.
And we should have the CO, or at least the permit to file for the CO.
Yes, sir.
After today's inspection, which is 11:30.
Okay.
This one.
Fire marshal.
Yes.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And we have Marion Marks. You wanted to make a statement?
Yes, and I want to thank you all for coming. My concern is partially the optics of what has transpired since the original contract was signed. It's that the flow of assets at that plant and the flow of taxpayer money and assets at that plant, it appears the tide has gone out. The plant is not worth as much as we were told, because rather than a gem, it's a lump of coal based on what people want to move into today. Is it unreasonable to expect that at the end of 5 years, I believe, the plant becomes 100% IRG's property? Is that correct, the way the current lease purchase was written? Is that what the public...
No, none at all.
You mean...
Why would you say that?
I thought the way I read the lease at the end of 5 years, it's more or less a interest-free loan that the parish put up $7.5 million for.
That's completely untrue.
No.
And as a matter of fact, the annual rent now totals $720,000, which is a better rate of return on $7.5 million than I think the parish is able to get on any other of their cash investments. At the end of the lease term, IRG has, or Shreveport Business Park, has an option to purchase the property for $7.5 million with credit plus 8% interest, with credit given for the rent that they've paid. Those are the financial terms.
Which means for $7.5 million they own it. Is that correct?
$7.5 million plus 8% compound interest minus the payments that they make. Yeah.
Which is all that the parish put in.
So the parish is guaranteed an 8% return on the money.
But the taxpayers had an interest in the bailed out facility, which was worth at the time, according to Dr. Wilson and Commissioner Epperson, it was the most valuable modern facility in America for producing automobiles that went bankrupt.
Well, to put it in perspective, there was an offer at the time by someone who would pay $8.5 million just for the scrap if it was demolished. Now, what that would have left is a piece of land. That wasn't what was desired. This plant has the potential that you've heard described by Mr. Lichter, who is in the business and has been for decades of saving these plants and their value. If we had decimated the plant, we could have got $8.5 million for it. We bought it for $7.5 million. How can that not?
But in terms of tax base, we lost $1.4 million a year plus the taxes from citizens who were working. So there was a greater loss.
Mr. Marks, I think I don't think you have the right picture, but
okay.
If you want to say anything else to the group, please, your time is yours.
That's it.
Go ahead.
That's it.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for your interest. We'll be happy to talk to you more about it later, but there's some facts you really ought to know about. This is all in the best interest of the people of Caddo Parish. the people sitting around this table serve at no compensation and strictly in the interests of the people of Caddo Parish. And this whole operation is about that. So, but thank you for your interest. We'd love to talk to you more about it after the meeting. Is there any other business? Are there any other public comments? We don't have any other cards. Yes, ma'am.
I didn't give you one, but can I provide it?
Did you want to make a statement?
I do, if you need this.
Please, go ahead.
Mr. Lichter, this is Cordelia. I'm with KTBS3. I'm part of those people that you feel a bit unfair. One, I want to make a point that if you would return phone calls, it would help us to have dialogue. So if we have something that's misunderstood, we can clarify that. So I'm asking if we can have a one-on-one interview with you after your meeting with GLOVIS so we can announce what comes out of that. The other thing is, 2 questions. Excuse me. NASDAQ. Was Elio approved for their NASDAQ listing?
Actually, I don't know the answer to that.
You don't know the answer. And then the other is the rent that Elio paid you in shares of stock. The types of stock, according to the SEC documents, is that you have the protected stock that if Elio files bankruptcy, you will still get paid because that stock is protected in bankruptcy court. If Elio files bankruptcy, will you still pay the rent to the IDB, the portion of Elio's?
So I'm not sure I totally understand your question, but I don't know if you're building a transaction that is related to my obligations to IDB, so we always pay the rent to IDB, right? So, basically, we took the Elio stock because if Elio is worthless, it will not reflect anything. And if Elio makes it, right, maybe the stock would be worth something, to which the parish would be entitled to a greater sum of money. It was either give up on Elio today, right, and for nothing, and eliminate the chance they get into business and that jobs come to Shreveport, or take what in effect would be a worthless piece of paper if they don't make it, and get something of value to all of us if they do make it.
So I'm just going to interrupt for a second. So I want to clarify that the type of shares that Elio paid you were not common stock, was not preferred stock. It was the type of stock that...
Ms. Gable, this is far beyond what we're here for. Would you ask these questions after our meeting?
Okay. So if I can get an interview with you after...
This is about the IDB, and I will tell you from the IDB standpoint, Elio, IRG is current in their lease payments. They have paid $1,590,000 to date on that lease. They pay $60,500 a month. They pay it on time.
The percentage of Elio's rent, though, have you been paid that?
Elio rent is not due to us. It is not due to us. I'm telling you that...
Do you not get a percentage of the rent from
Elio? Our tenant is IRG.
I'm
Our
just
tenant
clarifying.
is IRG, and IRG is current on their lease payment.
But does IDB get a percentage of the rent that Elio is supposed to
Only
pay?
as the rent exceeds the $2.4 million a year of maintenance costs. That has never been an issue.
So Elio owes nothing.
Elio owes us nothing.
We have no contractual
relationship with Elio.
But the percentage, based on what you're saying about the
percentage
maintenance,
rent,
there's no percentage of rent that's due.
That is
from Elio.
correct. That is correct.
There is a percentage rent due to the extent that the rent that Shreveport Business Park receives under its subleases with the tenants exceeds the operating expense. Then once a year, they have to make an accounting of that and make a percentage rent payment. To date, none of the sublease payments have exceeded the operating expenses, so they are current in their obligation under the lease. Anything else about the nature of the stock or anything like that, you should address to the Shreveport Business Park after the meeting.
Yeah.
We have Elio is not a party to any contract with the IDB.
I think we're done, folks. If there is no other business, again, I want to thank.
I would make a motion that we adjourn.
All right, a motion to adjourn, seconded by our treasurer, and we are all in favor of that motion. Indicate by aye.